Hey there, everybody. We are back with another exciting astrology video on William Ramsey's Astrology Restored. Now, in the last video, we read the fourth chapter of this fourth part right here, and looked over the charts a little bit, and then we read the introduction and the first half of the first chapter of the third book on elections. Now, I tried to record that next bit, the next section, or the rest of the chapter for the third book there. And it was many rules that I could not intuit the meaning in the moment, so it just seemed futile to even talk about. So I'll have to really study that before I try to present it to you, because there's just too much information for me to try to figure out in the moment, especially when his meaning is obscure and I'm not entirely sure what he means. So it seems better to me just to but continue with this section 2 of the next part while we have the time. So we're just going to get started and maybe look at a chart or two for 2021 in these regards. All right. So, showing the state and condition of the king or rulers and their continuation and durability in any revolution, as also the condition of the people from the position and fortitudes of their significators. Also, how to know the Lord of the year in any revolution of the years of the world, and the significators thereof in the 12 houses, signs and aspects of the planets, also of the significations of the head and tail of the dragon in any of the 12 houses. So that's that much for the second section. One other reason I found that trying to talk about the electional section was going to be difficult is because he uses these definitions that we haven't talked about yet in the, how to find the Lord of the Year, etc. So although that book comes before this book in order, I think it's a better foundation for us to just stay here. So, let's keep going. Of the state or condition of the king or chief rulers and people in any annual revolution. After thou art well informed of the true significator of the king and people, or any one's person or thing, concerning which thou wouldst judge of any future event, thou wilt be the better able to accomplish thy desires. Wherefore, now to know the true state and condition of the king, people, or any other, have regard to their true significators, as unto the sign of the 10th, if thou inquirest concerning the king, etc., its lord, and the planet or planets therein posited. And some of the ancients have said the sun, part of fortune, and its dispositor are also to be joined in consideration with them. Thou mayst choose which thou wilt follow, and see how they are dignified, how aspected, and by what planets, their nature, place in the heavens, and nature of the sign from whence they aspect your significator. If he be in sextile or trine of the fortunes, and out of good houses, thou mayst expect and judge from thence good. But if beheld by the square or opposition of the infortunes, mischief is to be feared. If the aspects be good, and from many benevolent planets, judge much success. If otherwise, less, and so contrariwise, much evil, if your significator be several ways afflicted, etc. If you would know the nature of the evil or good which is threatened by the assistance or debilities of your significator, look to the nature of the planet afflicting, and the nature of the sign wherein he is located, and the part of heaven in which he is placed, and according to their significations judge. As, for example, in your figure, you have, suppose, the Lord of the 10th in the 9th, by which you shall judge some secret treason or plot against his person during that revolution, because it is the 12th from the 9th. It is 12th from the 10th, and signifieth secret enemies and plots. But if beheld by the Lord thereof, by a malicious square or opposition, you shall say, he shall undertake some journey by which he shall endanger his life, or in the which some such perils shall happen. And if also at the same instant he be afflicted by the malevolent aspect of the Lord of the 8th, which is the 5th in the figure, no wise assisted by the adjuvant beams of the fortunes, thou mayst then assuredly conclude him to be in great jeopardy of his life. Sorry, I'm stopped by what he said, 5th in the figure. I don't entirely understand what he means by that. I understand 10th from the 12th, or 12th from the 10th being the 9th, but what does he mean by 5th in the figure? Does that mean his 8th? His 8th is the 5th. So the king's 8th house is the 5th. So the Lord of the 5th in the figure. I see. And if other testimonies concur, thou mayest absolutely pronounce death. For you must still remember that according to the signification of the sign the afflicting planet is the Lord of, the sign and place of heaven wherein he is, to pronounce the nature of the evil threatened. For we shall suppose the Lord of the 8th, before mentioned, to be in the 7th, which is the 4th in the figure, though 7th from the 10th, by which you may assuredly say that the evil, viz., the danger of death threatened, shall be occasioned by the malicious and furious actions of his enemy, the 7th house having signification thereof, and so judge of any other position. And the contrariwise, if the aspects and planets aspecting be fortunes, and in good places of heaven judge the contrary. Okay, well that's plenty, isn't it? That's definitely enough to think about. Sorry, I'm not in a place where I can just chug through this and interpret it on the fly. There's too much, way too much. So let's jump over and take a look. 2021 chart. Eastern USA. Okay. There we go. So, if we consider the 10th house being the first house for the government, their second house is Sagittarius, with the south node there being the aid of the government. The third for them being the 12th Capricorn, ruled by Saturn, their short trips, their neighbors, the ascendant being their home or their fortification, their root, so to speak, their home, their base, so to speak, very strong and ruled by Saturn. Their fifth being the second in the figure, Pisces, and ruled by Jupiter in a good way. All of these first four, or first, the second through the fifth for the government, they all have strong rulerships. Saturn, Jupiter. So we can judge that they are strong in their rulerships, but I'm not entirely sure how to distinguish that from the planets therein that may be afflicted. So we consider that the fifth from the 10th is the second, and that house contains Mercury, the lord of the fifth in the figure, and the lord of the eighth in the figure, who for the king is the eighth, Gemini, and the 11th, Mercury, or Virgo. So the Lord, for the king's sake, I'm saying the king because that's how Ramsey is putting it. Of course, in the United States, we have a republic. But let's see. The 8th in the figure is the 5th. So the Lord of the 8th contains Mars, the Lord of the 10th. So the cause of death, the Lord of the government is in the house of the cause of death, ruled by Mercury, putting a mean-looking square aspect to Mars. And where is Mercury? That's in the 5th house, the recreational house for the government. Communications. Mercury in detriment there. The moon is also in the 8th house from the 10th. And there's an incredibly large, that's such a big axis going on. Everything is aspecting the 5th house, the 8th house. So it looks like there is some, for the government's sake, there is a very strong potentiality of death from its lord, or to its lord. The lord of the 8th is not looking well to the lord of the 10th. Or you understand what I mean. The lord of the 8th from the 10th, the 5th, is not looking well for the lord of the 10th. So that is dangerous. Let's see what Ramsey said explicitly about that. Again, I hope you enjoy this format. I'm working on how to unpack this book as a video format. So, you know. Anyway, as for example, in your figure, you have, suppose, the Lord of the 10th in the 9th, by which you shall judge some secret treason or plot against his person during that revolution, because it is the 12th from the 10th, and signifieth secret enemies and plots. But if beheld by the Lord thereof by a malicious square or opposition, you shall say he shall undertake some journey by which he shall endanger his life, or in the which some such perils may happen. And if also at the same instant he be afflicted by the malevolent aspect of the Lord of the eighth, which is the fifth in the figure, no wise assisted by the adjuvant beams of the fortunes, thou mayest then assuredly conclude him to be in great jeopardy of his life. And if other testimonies concur, thou mayest absolutely pronounce death. For you must still remember that according to the signification of the sign, the afflicting planet is lord of the sign and place of heaven wherein he is, to pronounce the nature of the evil threatened. For we shall suppose the Lord of the eighth, before mentioned, be in the seventh. These must be from the 10th, which is the fourth in the figure, of course, though seventh from the 10th, by which you may assuredly say that the evil, viz., the danger or death threatened, shall be occasioned by the malicious and furious actions of his enemy, the seventh house having signification thereof, and so judge of any other position, and contrariwise, if the aspects of the planets be fortunes, in good places of heaven, judge the contrary, etc. Okay, so Mercury, the Lord of the 8th from the 10th, is in the 5th from the 10th. The people's aid, or the recreation of the government. So there's an mercurial energy in the recreation of the government, and it is ill aspecting the Lord of the government. This mercurial energy in the recreation of the government is the Lord of the government's house of death, and is the house of, let's see, it's the 11th from the 10th. So that can be fortunate success. The 11th house is a little mysterious to me, but business success, fortune, all of the aspects of society that we look for. Let me see if I can find a very brief definition of the 11th house. Let's see. His friends, whether true or false. So the 11th house very basically could be friends. I've also seen it being used for, success in business, and I've seen that myself. So it looks like people who are close to the government, who are friendly and sporting and playful, are intending to be the cause of death for the government. And the Lord thereof is right in there with the moon. So, does this mean that the government is in the effect of destroying itself through its own whimsy? I'm not sure. I see that it has a trine from Saturn, who is very strong and signifying the people. The moon also being there, signifying the people, and getting the trine from Jupiter in the first house. And the people's recreation has Mars in it. Where is the 8th house for the people? Virgo. So also Mercury. So there's a cause of death for the people and the government. The moon here is ruling the 6th house for the people and ruling the 9th house for the government. Can we unpack that anymore? I'm not sure. Well, I suppose what we can infer from this is that there is a lot of danger around recreation in this year, which is surprising, and Mercury, being the lord of the 8th house for both the government and the people, is dangerous. So is it the transmissivity by close contact is throwing a potentiality of death on this? To me, it looks like people are going to try to reopen everything. They're going to try to have festivals and carnivals and bar drinking and all this stuff, but it's so streamlined. Like, there's a chance for this transmissive element to be the downfall for both the people and the government. So take of that what you will. I'm glad we got to look through that together. I'm pretty pleased with how this video turned out, given the circumstances. So I thank you. I wish you well. I hope God's favor will meet with you and give you peace. In Jesus' name, amen.